Alright, today I'm going to show you guys how to remove valve springs on a cylinder head. Here I have a pair of Trickflow Twisted Wedge 170s. You can see up here. Trickflow. Just got these heads back from the machine shop and I wasn't too impressed with the spring pressures on it, so I'm going to upgrade them to a dual setup so I can have a little bit more spring pressure to work with my cam. But yeah, these heads are the 202 intake 160 exhaust, and are one of the only heads with 202 intake valves that'll work with a stock block 302 without notching the pistons, which I really don't want to do. So let's see, get it turned around. I picked up a set of Anderson high rev valve springs. They're a dual spring that are rated to 600 inch of lift and are rated at 450 pounds open on the 1.8, or no, 1.2. At 1.2 installed height, it's rated at 450 pounds, and closed, it's rated at 150 at 1.8 inches installed. So I'm just going to take these and put them in there, and so I can get my spring pressure that I need for my cam. The stock springs that are on the Trickflow heads right now, as they come from the factory, are just single springs that are rated at 540 inch of lift, and on the seat closed it had 110 pounds, and open it had around 280. So that's not enough for my cam, as it calls for like 320 open. So we're gonna go ahead and get going. So this is what you're gonna need here. There's a couple different styles of valve spring compressors out there, but this is just the one that I had luck with. I picked it up today for about 20 bucks at Advance Auto, and it did the job on the other head. So basically what it does is you put the top of the retainer here between these two little hooks, right here and here, and then you put the claws on the springs. So we're going to go ahead and look at the spring here and get it set up, and then I'll show you guys. And you want to make sure it's spun all the way out. So we're going to go ahead and get this on the spring here. And something important is there's a dampener spring in there that you don't want to get that underneath the hooks when you're compressing it, because that'll mess the dampener spring up. But yeah, basically you're going to want to take the long hook and get it as far down on the spring as you can, like there. So right there, and then the shorter hook, as seen here, just get it underneath one of the springs. And then just start tightening down on this until you get it down on the... Let's see if I can get this to set up. Yeah, ain't gonna work. Maybe let's see here. Alright, so as you can see there, the two prongs that we're talking about are on the very top of the retainer. Now you're just going to start twisting down on the compressor tool while holding the valve, because as you can see, it'll start spinning if you don't hold on to it. So set the camera over here and we'll get it compressed. Let's see if I can get it to stand up. There we go. So just start cranking down on it. And this can get kind of tiresome. I had to take a break after the first head, after doing 8 springs. So once you got it torqued down pretty good, you're going to want to go and grab a magnet. Just a simple magnet, something strong like this. The reason you want a magnet is so you can pull the keepers out once you get the spring compressed enough. So torque down a little bit more. Alright, so as you can see here, the spring has been compressed quite a bit from what it was. Now what you're going to want to do is try to press down on it. It's kind of hard to film this at the same time, but See, as you can see there, the locks are starting to come up a little bit. You can, let's see here. Alright, I got it pressed down. Yeah, that's perfect. Yep, there's one of the retainers right there. And now what you can do, once you have one of them out, you can go ahead and start pulling on the spring, and you see how it came out of that cup right there? You want to push the spring out of that little black cup there, because that's the spring seat. And if you try to pull it up with the seat, it'll take the valve seal off and could damage it. So I'll try to set it down here enough to where you can see it in getting popped out of the seat. Oh, see there, right there it left. Alright. And then you can pull the whole spring assembly out, and that's what you got. And don't forget about your lock that's still in there, if you can see it there. And with this set of heads, it has 7-degree locks on it, so I'm just going to reuse the locks that came out. Here's the lock. And here's the valve seal and valve seat. Make sure that's down there good, and make sure that the seal didn't get pulled up. As a rule of thumb, you're not supposed to reuse valve seals if you've already pulled them off, and so in this case I'm just going to leave them alone, as these heads don't have very many miles on them. But you can also inspect your valve stem when you have the valve off. In this case it looks pretty good. There's a number on the valve there. Let's see if I can get it to focus a little bit. It's not really cooperating. Oh well, you get the general idea. And as you can see, the valve will open now, so let's go over here and take a look at this intake valve. It's a massive valve for my application anyways, but oh, that's actually the exhaust valve, I'm sorry. That's the intake valve. So anyways, it's best to try to put something underneath the valve so it doesn't pop back up when you're trying to install the new spring. Because with these dual springs, it's kind of a pain, because the inner spring, you can't really get it compressed with these kind of spring compressors. So I'm just going to jam a shoe up under the exhaust valve to kind of try to hold it in place. See, now it'll stay a little bit better. So we're going to go ahead and uncompress the old spring here. Let's see. Get this out of the way. And once you have all the tension taken off the spring, you can just open the jaws up. No, that's about it. There we go. Take the jaws off and pull the spring out. Alright, and with these springs, here's the retainer that came off with the lock in it. And we can get a shot here of the differences in the springs. Over on the right side, we have the stock Trickflow spring rated at 540 inch of lift, and then we have the Anderson high rev dual spring rated at 600 inch of lift. And as you can see, it's got 2 springs in there instead of 1, so that's gives it quite a bit more spring pressure on the seat. So we're going to go ahead and put this in. It doesn't really matter which way you put the spring in. They're both machined on the end, so the retainer sits flat on it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is put this in the compressor and go ahead and get the spring compressed, because it's easier than trying to, put it on the valve. Because what happens is you try to get these hooks on the outside of the spring here. like how we did the other one, but it doesn't get a hold of the smaller ones on the smaller spring. So it's kind of a pain to do, but I'll see if I can get it on tape. I'm gonna go ahead and set the camera over here, and let's see, can I get a see if I can get this. Sideways. There we go. Alright, so anyways, get your retainer. You can leave the lock in it if you want, just make sure it doesn't fall off. And you know, just put the retainer in the spring like it should be. Make sure it's sitting flush and everything. And then go ahead and take your tool and put the spring and the retainer on the clip up here. And make sure you have the claws in between the spring correctly, not touching the dampener spring because you don't want to crush that. And then start to compress it. And you can start cranking down on the handle here and compressing the spring down. The only thing that's not that good about this spring compressor is the handle's kind of cheap, and it doesn't feel very good when you're trying to torque down on something like a spring. So anyways, now that we have the spring good and torqued down, you can see how this little spring, how I was talking about, sticks out a little bit. So what you're gonna have to do here, and it's not easy, this camera set back. Okay, so I got the better camera angle so you guys can see what's going on here. There's the valve seat right there. We're about to put the spring on, as we already had it compressed from earlier in the video, the new Anderson spring. So what we're going to want to try to do, let's get a close-up of this again. As you can see, this is with the spring all the way on, and as you can see down there, that smaller spring is sitting on the seat and causing the main spring not to sit flush. So what we're going to have to do to get the thing to go in the lock to seat is push down on the spring and get it to go into the seat. And then push our other lock into place. Alright, there it went. You see that? Finally got it into place. So now the entire valve is locked. Let's zoom out a little bit. Right, the valve is locked, and we can start taking pressure off of the spring compressor, but you got to hold it because it's going to start spinning like it was before. So alright, take the spring compressor off, and just like that, we now have a dual spring set up inside here. And the lock is, well, good and locked. Alright, so we just finished the exhaust valve on this Trickflow Twisted Wedge 170 cylinder head for a small block Ford 302. So I figured I'd go ahead and take another video of doing the intake valve as well. So let's get started. As you know, got our handy dandy valve spring compressor here, and another one of our Anderson dual springs. Alright, so let's go ahead and set you up over here so I can get another shot of it getting compressed. Alright, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and set this up over here. I'll do it this way so you guys can see what's going on. Alright. So get the hooks underneath the valve spring good, making sure that you're not on the dampener spring in there. flashlight and check and make sure. And we are good to go. And the cool thing about this, upgrading to these springs, you can take these Trickflow springs off and sell them. Make some of your money back. They may not be worth a bunch, but I mean, it's better than nothing. So we're going to go ahead and we got it set up here. Got the jaw under that side, and we got a jaw on this side. And making sure not to mess with the dampener. And we got these two little prongs here sitting on top of the retainer. So let's see if I can get set up to where you guys can see as I'm cranking down on it, the retainer moving. Let's see here. Oop. Alright, so we can see the retainer nice now. The camera's not going to fall. And we'll start cranking down on it. Okay, and you can see now. Okay, so before the camera fell, you could see that the retainer is going down and there are the exposed locks. So I'm going to take my handy dandy magnet, after I zoom out, take my handy dandy magnet and try to pull a lock out. And I got one. Right there. You can see the other one's still over there on the side, but that's no big deal. Alright, so what we're going to go ahead and do, as per the exhaust valve, make sure that when we pull this out, we're not pulling the seat out, which we are. So I'm going to go ahead and try to hold the camera and wiggle it out of the seat. And there it went loose. And I dropped the retainer. So I'm going to grab my magnet and hit it. So we got both retainers there, the spring came out, and the valve seal looks fine. It doesn't like focusing on that valve too well. So, still got the shoe under there. Go ahead and take a look at that intake valve. It's pretty massive. It's a big old valve. Alright, well anyways, back to the spring. So let's go ahead and take the compression off of the old Trickflow spring here. Let's see if you can get a good shot of it. This really isn't a bad tool for the price. I've heard a lot of worse reviews on it, but I haven't had any trouble with it yet, and I've only done, of course I've only done, what, 10 valves with it now. Alright, so there's the valve, Trickflow valve, in all of its stock glory. See, there's nothing too special about it, just a single spring. Alright, and there's our retainer, which we're going to be reusing on this particular setup. And we're going to take our new Anderson dual spring again. Remember, it doesn't really matter which way is which for the spring. Let's see if I can get zoomed in on this to show you. You see how it's flat right there? Flip it around. Still nice and flat, so it doesn't really matter which way. Alright, we're going to go ahead and take one of the locks and put it in there because I've just had luck doing it like this in the past. So there's your lock in there. I'll get it back adjusted over here into this intake valve. Do the box. Alright. Zoom in on it. Alright. So what we're going to do first is put this spring compressor back on it, make sure the retainer doesn't fall out and everything else like I just did. So put the retainer back on there. Get the spring set back up correctly in the jaws. Yeah, there we go. So you guys see how I have this? See what I mean about the dampener spring in there? You don't want to get that claw on it because it might tear it up. And then right here you see I got the dampener sitting right on those tabs perfectly. Alright. So we're going to go ahead and start cranking down on it. And since I've done 9 of these before, I know that this is pretty much as far as I need to go as far as tightening it down, maybe a hair more. So I'm going to go ahead and get it set back up on this intake valve. Get it zoomed in there real good. See if I can't set it up this way here. And as you can see, go ahead and start pressing down on this retainer, get that nice and seated down there. Oop, and it popped out. Let's see. Yep, there we go. Both the retainers got back down into place on the valve. And let me zoom out real quick. So you can see right there, they're perfectly halved together. We still have the spring compressor on there compressing it. And another thing I didn't mention in the other video is you want to make sure the spring is seated in the seat correctly and not on the side or something. So what I'm going to do when I'm loosening it up, I'm going to make sure that the spring is sitting where it's supposed to in the seat. So we're going to go ahead and take the pressure off this. While making sure that it's going into its seat correctly. And if it doesn't, it's no big deal. You can always take a flathead screwdriver and gently tap on the spring to get it to seat back in place. And when you do this, it's going to make a loud pop sound as it's jumping back into place. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and pop this tool off here. And if it'll let go, pull the tool off, inspect our valve. As you can see, both halves of the retainer are flush down with the head of the valve and everything's sealed good. And we're going to go ahead and look down here at the valve seat. And in this case, the valve is not on the seat all the way. I don't believe. Yeah, you can see here. See how the spring's sitting on the seat just a little bit. I'm going to get a shot. In this case, you can also use a knife. Did you hear that pop? That was the spring sitting back into the seat. So now we're going to go ahead and check this other spring and make sure that it's in its proper place as well. And in the case of this spring, it is properly in its seat, so we're all good to go. That is a intake and exhaust valve replacement video for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll probably have more videos to come when I end up getting these heads on the vehicle. It's going on my 1995 Mustang GT. I'll probably make some videos of the other stuff, but I just thought a lot of people would be interested to see how the whole valve spring works and everything. So, yeah, there we go. 10 down and 6 to go. Alright, thanks for watching.